Turn to our conversation today. More reactions have continued to trail the seizure of presidential jets by a Chinese company due to a court ruling. Former Governor of Ogun State, Ibikunle Amosun, has called on the Nigerian government not to give the Chinese firm any listening ear. He explained that in 2011, two different sets of Chinese companies laid claims to management rights over the Ogun Free Trade Zone. According to the former governor, there were claims and counterclaims as to who between the two was the lawful representative of the original joint venturer. He noted that based on the information at the disposal of government at the time, Zone Full International Investment was appointed as an interim zone manager pending further evaluation. Senator Amosun also mentioned that the government of China in 2016 clarified to Ogun State government that China Africa Investment was the rightful investor, and after due consultation, the government gave effect to the request of the Chinese government. We're also hearing from former governor of Ogun State, Benga Daniel, who's called for diplomatic solutions, stating that rather than engaging in media war, the most reasonable course of action now is finding a diplomatic solution to the issue at hand. The senator representing Ogun East explained that as governor, he was able to bring about projects including the establishment of the Ogun Guangdong Free Trade Zone, and as at the time of his handover in 2011, about 56 companies were at various stages of operations. In this report, TVC News senior reporter Kazim Olowe visited the Free Trade Zone, and he now reports.
Security met at the entrance denied us entry into the Free Trade Zone. They claimed that there must be written permission from the Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority. And for days, the news of confiscation of 3 Nigerian-owned aircraft due to failed multi-million-dollar contract between the Ogun State government and a Chinese firm has been generating reactions across the country. The federal government and Ogun State government, in their separate reactions, have described the company as impostor and assured Nigerians that they would ensure that the country's assets and interests are well protected. A statement signed by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, confirmed that the presidency is aware of the various failed attempts by a Chinese company, Zhongchan Fucheng Industrial Investment Company Limited, to take over offshore assets of the federal government of Nigeria. He said the federal government is not under any contractual obligation with the company. The Ogun State government also faulted the judicial process that led to the provisional attachment of 3 Nigerian government-owned aircraft in France by the Judicial Court of Paris on 7th March and 2nd August 2024. In a statement signed by the Special Advisor to the Ogun State Governor on Media and Strategy, Kayode Akimade, the state described the latest development as new antics by the Chinese company to appropriate Nigerian assets in foreign jurisdictions. Worried by the ugly trend, Nigerians called out the 2 former governors of Ogun State, Benga Daniel and Ibikunle Amosun, to state their roles in the issue. The Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority listed the Ogun Guangdong Free Trade Zone as one of the zones in the country, and our visit to the place confirms that the primary focus of the free zone is on manufacturing and processing industries. Most of those working for companies in the Free Trade Zone refused to speak on camera, but they claim that a Chinese company and the Nigerian government are in charge, while those who spoke on camera say more than 40 companies are operating in full, while others are at various stages of completion.
What we are producing there, we are producing tiles. So on the tiles, each and every day, we are having more customers from various places.
We have 40 companies inside. So many people from many places, they are coming to work from here.
According to the information obtained on the website of the Nigerian Export Processing Zones Authority, there are more than 40 free zones in the country with more than 500 free enterprises.
With the current situation of things, Nigerians are expecting successive administrations in Ogun State to work together with the federal government in ensuring that the seized aircraft are returned to the country, and of course, the interest of Nigeria in Ogun Guangdong Free Trade Zone is protected. Kazim Olowe, TVC News, Igbesa.
For more on this development, investment banker and business analyst Mukhtar Mohammed joins me on the program. Mr. Mohammed, thank you for joining us on the show this evening.
Thank you for having me, Nifemi.
All right, so let's begin with Professor Patutomi's tweet on this matter. He seemed to have alleged that Governor Amosun's violation of contract terms, originally signed by his predecessor, led to the seizure of these jets. He went on in a tweet to describe how a prominent Ogo indigene allegedly committed suicide with a similar action by the former governor, and how him and his South African partners also lost about 200 million investment in that regard. What do you think happened here?
Well, again, we are back to what we've always said, that in Nigeria, sometimes the politicians forget that government is a continuous process, and they tend to do things and not knowing the repercussion might come. Now, this repercussion is not just coming, it's coming as a big disgrace to the nation as a whole. And to see these two people, Tumbak Benga Daniel, saying there should be a diplomatic solution, and Adekunle Amosun keep on defending himself, saying he did the right thing in the interest of the state. It's something that everybody is just should be ashamed of, both of them. Now, if you look at Patutomi tweet and what he said and what Adekunle Amosun is saying, sometimes you have to read between the lines, because he was saying that project was given to him by Tumbak Benga Daniel. Adekunle Amosun is saying that the State House of Assembly actually blacklisted Patutomi, and also said that Patutomi company also was not really doing the job when he heard that there was a new government coming to town. That's why he was trying to do one or two things to catch the attention of the government. So, again, Patutomi did not sue them, did not go to court, did not challenge them. If you have lost over 200 million, it shows that he has so much money. That's why he didn't even bother challenging them. But for the Chinese company, I think they felt that they were wrongly treated, and they went to court. And like we say, that's why we are where we are today. But again, like I said, it's very shameful.
We've also heard from former Governor Amosun, and according to him, this dispute is primarily a business rivalry between two Chinese companies with no substantive involvement of the Ogun State government and the federal government. He says his administration became involved when both companies laid claim to management rights, I think in 2011. He's saying this is purely a business dispute between two Chinese nationals, and that it mustn't be allowed to degenerate into unlawful attempt to appropriate Nigeria's sovereign assets. It doesn't make sense if you had taken time to read his press release.
For me, it doesn't make sense. If two Chinese companies were involved in a dispute, why did you not allow them to sort out their dispute in the court? And they should have been, both of them should be in court, and maybe the court will now give an order that for this project to continue, then the Ogun State government need to step in. That would have been a better arrangement. Or when both of them are in court, Ogun State government can come in and say, look, we don't want this project to stop because it's a major project in our developmental Ogun State and Nigeria. A lot of resources have been put into this project. So as long as you people are in court, you remain suspended, try to get on that partner to run this business. When you people come out, then we can begin to talk. But to say that both of them were a dispute in court and now you came in and maybe support one or did not support one, from your report, work is still ongoing in that side, and these other companies are no more there. So who took them out? Now the company is complaining about that their staff, their managers, some of their staff that were maltreated, were beaten, were locked up, and they were asked to leave the country. So it shows that we've forgotten that there is a rule of law and there's an international court that can give justice to anybody. That is because of the way we do things. We have no regard for rule of law when we are in power. That is why we are where we are today. Well, and it's very disgraceful.
He also addressed the allegation of beating up people, saying that it didn't happen. By the way, according to him, the Ogun State government at the time identified one of the companies as an interim manager, pending an investigation, which according to him came from the Chinese government, identifying one of them as the lawful partner in that deal. But we're going to be talking about that shortly after this break. Stay with us, everyone. Mukhtar Mohammed is an investment banker and business analyst. Thank you for staying the course on the program this evening. Well, what former Governor Amosu is saying is that this matter of zoneful international investment should be treated the same way Nigeria treated the PNID case, and that there is no basis for negotiation according to him. What lessons do you think can be learned from the PNID case, and how can Nigeria apply them in this regard?
Well, the PNID case was well executed, and whether we like it or not, from what we are hearing, it took the former CBN governors to tell President Buhari to not to pay the money. Already, the then Attorney General and other people were saying that we should pay off this money and then have it, let's get it off. But some members of the cabinet refused. So what lessons are there for us to learn? We must know that international law is different from local law, where we do a lot of shenanigans, somebody telling you, go there, this judgment is given today, this judgment is given tomorrow. So we need to begin to understand that in international law, we must put our house in order. And when we are awarding contracts, we should also look at what type of contract, what are the deliverables, what are they supposed to do, put in a clause that will permit you to also strike out this contract when they are not meeting their deliverables. So what we see in Nigeria is that they just award contract based on them. Now, look, this present contract that we're having with the Ogun State government, it's a BIM deal between Nigerian government and Chinese government. It's an investment group that was established to make sure that Chinese companies are able to do business in Nigeria. But how much of Chinese government have intervened in this case now, involving their own company that is China? The government is silent. They seem not to be saying anything about it. So we must learn our lesson that we must do the right thing, and we must do things based on international best practice. Now, the PIIB were able to go through it because the EFCC came in. There was a corruption allegation against them, and most of the document and some of this document was already presented in court here in Nigeria, and judgment was given. But in this case, present case, there is no mention of any court ruling as regard this case. Rather, is a government saying we recognize this and this. So there was not a due process was not followed. I think that is the difference between the PIDB issue and this present issue, because due process was not following this issue. And that is why we keep telling the government, whoever you are, governor, you must know that rule of law supersedes any authoritative rule that you think you're doing. Because one day that you are out there, some other person will survive. Look at this project now. It was embarked upon by Otumba Benga Daniel. Adekule Amosu come revoked it. Now, who is suffering it? Is the current governor. So it shows that we don't know, like I said in my introduction, that governance is a continuous thing. It's not a one-off. So we need to get our act together. And the National Assembly also would have intervened in such issue to give judgment or enlightening them, because it's a bilateral agreement. It's an international bilateral agreement. So what it means that it has also gone through the National Assembly. The National Assembly have approved it.
Mr. Mohammed,
if you ask the member of the National Assembly, they can tell you that they did not even approve it.
Mr. Mohammed, allow me to jump in quickly. You know, you talked about international best practices. I'm wondering what kind of standard practices you think should have been followed, because the former governor, Ibekule Amosu, is the one who terminated this contract. According to him, the company in question is an imposter. You don't think we should pay attention to him? How do we ensure that
Nifemi,
foreign companies are also not taking advantage?
If you have an imposter, did you report him to the security agency? Was he tried in court?
If you read that his press release, he actually did say that he carried the security services along, even the federal government at the time.
There's no court judgment.
He mentioned that this particular company in question had gone to court like 3 or 4 times, where they lost the case in court.
What was the judgment?
According to him, they lost. They were trying to regain possession.
Then
but
if he says they lost, because now I'm hearing that from you, and I mean,
well, that was what he said in his reaction, in his official reaction.
So if that is the case, then we have a legal ground. We have a legal ground. So we need to get those court judgments. Those are the judgments that we should be submitting next time the court is sitting, we should appeal it and submit those judgments to say that this company is an imposter, just like we did in the PIBB and PID issue. Because at the end of the day, the court realized that they were involved in corrupt practices. So same thing needs to apply here. If they really went to court and they said they went to court 3 times they lost, where is this court? Who was the judge that delivered this judgment? Was it a state court? Was it a high court? Was it an appeal court? Was it even the Supreme Court? So we need to know that. So if you give Nigerians that, we'll go and sleep.
China is Nigeria's largest import partner, and the two seem to have strong trade relations in this regard. What implications does this potentially have on relations between both countries?
I think it's not good because you remember before now there was an African country that it came out some 3 or 4 years ago that China was taking up the asset of that company because of the huge debt that that country was owing. A lot of Nigerians came out and said, look, with the rate that we are owing Chinese companies, the way we are owing China, the way we are borrowing money from China, it will come a time that the Chinese will just take over our national asset. And the then federal government came out and said, no, that is not possible. We are a sovereign nation. Now that is what is happening.
Well, it seems that's what's happening now.
A lot of this transaction between Nigeria and China sometimes do not pass through due process. Normally, when you have an international business agreement, it's supposed to be ratified by the National Assembly. And some of this business also was supposed to be ratified by the State Assembly, from the State Executive to the State Assembly, from the State Assembly to the National Assembly. That is why you put those processes to make sure that if one missed it, the other one will not miss it. But unfortunately, the State Executive is a rubber stamp of the governor. The State Assembly is a rubber stamp of the government. They may not even go through. And the National Assembly sometimes don't seem to do a thorough job in this because the members of the National Assembly from that state that indigenous of that state that in the National Assembly are loyal to the governor. So they tend to come out and make sure these things will just pass into law without due diligence. So it's an eye-opener.
Yes.
That we must do things. There's no law. It's not that there's no law. There's law. So we are not doing the right thing. And because everything in Nigeria is shown around political line. So now, if people want to judge it at that time, they will say because Ibukule Amosu was not the one that awarded the project, that's why he revoked the project. And you must not forget at that time, Ibukule Amosu and Otumba Gbenga Daniel were at loggerheads.
I hear you, Mr. Mohammed.
Governance is a continuous process.
Absolutely.
I expect him to have consult his predecessor and come up with a decision before even revoking the contract.
With time, I believe we're going to get some more legal understanding of how Nigeria was represented in that case, how it is possible to seize a national asset for a deal brokered with a sub-regional government. But you have talked about another very important, angle to this story, the potential consequences of politicizing this issue. We're all aware about the bitter rivalry amongst the 3 governors involved in this matter, the Amosu, Dapo Abiodun, and then the governor, who is now a senator, who actually brokered the deal. How do you think we can play less on the politics of things to help Nigeria move ahead significantly on this matter?
Nifemi, I've always said it that one thing we should take politics out of is our economy and our security. And that has been why we've not been able to address our security challenge. Because from the onset of this security challenge, we saw it as room for politics to say the other government is not doing well. When we come into power, we'll do better. The same thing with the economy. But if you look at developed nations, especially the United States of America, they don't play politics with their economy. They don't play politics with their security because it's going to affect the life of their people. A lot of lives will be affected.
lost connection with Mr. Mohammed Mukhtar as we continue to analyze and investigate what transpired with this deal between the Chinese companies and the Ogun State government. As we speak right now, Otobagbenga Daniel, who was the governor when this contract was signed, has underscored the importance of a diplomatic resolution. If you took time to read his press statement, he has analyzed the importance of resolving this matter between Nigeria and China. How a diplomatic resolution can be achieved is another ballgame entirely, and the role that stakeholders need to play in supporting government's efforts in this regard. Very interesting development, and many have said it's a great point of lesson for sub-regional governments as they go ahead in striking multilateral deals with international companies, that perhaps the Ogun State incident can be a learning curve.